Hello again. One of the things I love about having lived in different countries is the things that people assume you know, and, well, you just don't. The start of summer here in the USA is marked by a holiday called Memorial Day. But of course there's far more to it than that. My name is Ian Currey and this is Thinking Out Loud. Despite having lived in several countries and here in the USA for quite some time, I still find some things most people take for granted rather curious. Come on, let me tell you what I think. I really enjoy being able to see things from a different perspective than perhaps most other people around. All sorts of fun discussions are quite possible when you've lived in a place and understand the implications or consequences of doing things in a particular way that hasn't been tried here yet. A favorite? Well, these days it's socialized medicine. Certainly here in the USA, medical care is administered very differently than other places, certainly than we've lived. I remember going to the dentist when we first got here and being asked for an insurance card. Somehow we'd missed that part of our orientation, and so instead of an insurance card, I gave a blank look. Uninsured was written on the forms, which I assumed was fine since my teeth were duly inspected and everyone was very nice about it. That was, of course, until I came to leave and there was a bill to pay. How much? Some cultural differences we found out the hard way. Holidays are interesting too. Someone asked me why in the UK there is a spring bank holiday on a Thursday. Well, I didn't know there was, but yes, turns out there is. Well, this year anyway. It's the spring bank holiday that's had an additional day added to it to give a 4-day weekend for the Queen's Platinum Jubilee. Now that sounds like fun. Here in the USA, we have Memorial Day instead of Spring Bank Holiday. I think in practice, for most people, the two things are mostly the same. There's barbecue and days out and perhaps a weekend away somewhere nice. But the true meaning or reason for Memorial Day here is to pay tribute to all the people who have given their lives preserving the freedom that people enjoy here. Since I'm very interested in how things get started and how and why we celebrate things, I took a look to find the origins of Memorial Day and found out surprisingly it goes back further than the equivalent in the UK. The issue here though is that really nobody knows when it started or where. I suppose being such a good idea, everyone wants to claim it as originating from their city or state. In fact, well over 20 different places here in the USA claim to have started Memorial Day. Now they can't all be right, can they? I think the closest we have to this in the UK is Poppy Day. That's far more serious an event and isn't a day off or a bank holiday or anything. It's on November the 11th, Armistice Day, the day hostilities officially ceased at the end of World War I in 1918. That is a much bigger thing in Europe than here, and I think it may be here called Veterans Day. As a boy, I was introduced to this rather serious event when at the Royal Albert Hall, after a big display from the various branches of the military, everyone stands still and poppy petals are dropped from the ceiling. Each petal represents one of the people who laid down their lives defending the nation. It's very moving. Poppy Day, or Remembrance Day as it's referred to in England, took on a whole new twist when the centenary of the World War I in 2018 came around. I felt old, I must say, because I knew people growing up who had fought in that war, and now it was 100 years ago. The Tower of London had a fantastic display of poppies during the run-up to Poppy Day that year. I took a friend to see it and was surprised at the sheer scale of it all. Remembering things like this in that way is very important, isn't it? I've been reading a good bit lately. I've had a few days off. And I came across a number of authors who were making the point that all of life is futile. Chasing the wind, one writer put it. Well, perhaps true that life is short and sometimes our struggles seem so meaningless. I find that way of thinking to be very dark and depressing. Here's a couple of sentences for you. Everything is meaningless, says the teacher. Completely meaningless. What do people get for all their hard work under the sun? Generations come and generations go, but the earth never changes. Ooh, that's all rather depressing, isn't it? During tragic times where perhaps young soldiers are killed in battle, it is indeed important to remember them and the cause they were so bravely fighting for, perhaps defending their country from an evil regime or something. But at the same time, did you know God talks about forgetting evil things? No? Well, let me show you. I think I've mentioned this before because this is one of those places where I always think of Oliver Twist and Fagin, who was always reviewing the situation. Let us review the situation together, and you can present your case to prove your innocence. Now, this is where, so long as it is someone else and not me that is having to prove innocence, we're in for a good story, aren't we? God goes on to say, from the very beginning, your first ancestors sinned against me. All your leaders broke my laws. The idea here of remembering all the good from the past and holding on to something that might redeem us, even clutching at straws that our ancestors might have done something good enough to help. Seems like a lost cause when God's talking that way, doesn't it? Let us review the situation, indeed. Not much hope then, is there? But right before this, God is on record as saying, I, yes, I alone, will blot out your sins for my own sake, and will never think of them again. So far from remembering all the bad, all the nonsense, and all the pain each of us goes through, God says He is willing to forget it all. How cool is that? For sure, we must remember the bad times, the evil that men do, but at the same time, we must allow God to forget those things, to move on and forgive. However hard it might be, the only solution for the future is a clean slate, isn't it? A way to accept each other, faults and all, and without holding on to the things that divide us. Accept that we are all guilty of doing wrong. Each country I've lived in has a way of remembering its past, the people who made the country what it is today, the heroes, but also the villains. In a way, I suppose, we're all a product of our collective memories. The trouble with that, of course, is that our future can be hemmed in by those same memories. While learning from the past is important, moving on and letting God guide our every step is equally vital. I love that the idea there of mistakes I've made, the wrong we've all done being smished up and lobbed into the deepest ocean. Once again, you will have compassion on us. You will trample our sins under your feet and throw them into the deepest ocean. I had a friend who used to say, "Ooh, that sounds like a very polluted part of the ocean. There needs to be a no fishing sign there." There is. There is. Until next time, goodbye.